Typically, I try to avoid any type of left brain organization, but I thought it'd be useful to do a video that organized and summarized the last 300 or so videos I've posted on this channel. And I wanted to do it in a way that got to the really big questions. What is reality? What is consciousness? What are thoughts? And what are abstractions? And so let's just start off with the big one. What is reality? Because so many of us, we've been taught that reality is out there, this physical world that is unknown, and yet our bodies somehow grew brains that became conscious and then started to experience this external, distant physical reality. Well, let's take a slightly different path. And instead of all this that I'll show you in the video, that these are all really just thoughts about reality, what if the universe is an experiential universe, which is to say there is no me experiencing something out there. There's just experience. And so what if the universe is the experience and the experience alone? And that's what consciousness is. The direct conscious experience of what is happening in the here and now. There's no me in here experiencing something out there. There's just the experience. And I'll come back to that. So as Carl Jung put it, everything casts a shadow. And perhaps this experiential universe casts a shadow that we could call thinking. And thinking, we can view as a simulation of reality. And so technically the definition of cognition, which I talk quite a bit about on this channel, came about in 1967, Neisser. And it's really held up. It's a very, very good definition that initiated the cognitive revolution, that maybe all of our thoughts are not mere images of reality, because our thoughts are any sensory process, so that's the direct conscious experience. But these direct conscious experiences are transformed. They're elaborated, deleted, and then that transformed version becomes a memory that we use in the future. So in that way, thoughts are simulations of reality. It's like being in your car and you're driving and there's this rich, deep, three-dimensional experience of the real world. But then if you look at the computer screen on your car, there's this little simulation of reality where you could see your car. That's supposed to be you. And it's on a road with buildings. And that whole simulation is an impoverished version of reality. And when we spend half of our time in this simulated reality of thoughts, we're losing the richness of direct experience. And so, as I mentioned on other videos, it's this mind wandering into this simulation that makes us unhappy. It makes us anxious. And part of the reason behind this is how impoverished these simulations are. And so whether we are using the voice in the head, because there are two main ways that we humans, modern humans, engage in these simulations. One is the voice in the head, which is a simulation of auditory stimuli, me talking here and now in reality, and the visual mental imagery, which is the movie in the mind. And so half of our waking day is spent in this mental imaginary world of the voice in the head and the movie in the mind. But you could prove to yourself how impoverished these images, these simulations are, by going out for like an hour-long jog. Now you're nice and dehydrated. Now have a thought about drinking some water. It's somewhat pleasurable, but it's not the real thing. So get some real water and drink it. The richness of that experience will be so much deeper than what it was in the mind's thought process. And so that's really one of our modern problems. We're spending half of our time in this simulated world of thoughts, and they're just not filled with the richness of actual conscious reality. Okay, but that's only part of it. So in the last 200 years or so, we've taken it down another level. We've created a simulation of a simulation. We've created a thought of a thought. We've created a dream within the dream of thinking. And we've created what we might call abstractions. And now, for the modern human, we are surrounded with what at least appears as these abstract worlds of work, governments, ownership, and even the self. is one of these abstractions that is a thought of a thought. And it's like walking into a business and you say, well, who's the CEO? And some person comes down and they're supposed to be running the show. And you ask, you try to have a direct experience of how in the world are they a CEO? They can't show that to you. And the point of these abstractions is they lack one of the main criteria of reality. In the sense, in this video, I'm showing you, look, reality is your direct, immediate experience of the here and now. So show me how you're a CEO. And they might bring out some paperwork, which are just symbols that represent other abstractions, but they can't show it to you. In the same way that you can't see the university, you can't see your degree other than on a piece of paper or some kind of symbol of it. It's a symbol of something that doesn't exist in the real world because it can't be experienced. And in the last video, that's what I was getting at with the self. If the self had any reality to it, it should be experienceable. But try as you might, you will not be able to get to that actual experience. So all these abstractions, whether it's believing in government, believing in that you actually live in this thing called Pennsylvania, a state, all these take faith and a belief for them to exist, even though you can't directly experience them. So what is a belief? A belief is mistaking the simulation for reality itself, mistaking the simulation for something that can be consciously experienced. And when we get to abstractions, we're in a simulation of a simulation, a dream within a dream, and then we can no longer directly, consciously experience these things called abstractions. And yet at the same time, modern humans live in a world of abstractions that we take quite seriously. Perhaps no better definition has come along than that of Maya. If we look at to the east, Maya is illusion. And these things we call government or business or the self or others, they all exist in the state of what we might call Maya. And for many people, they may not care if this is a simulation within a simulation. And so there's a story I may have told in another video about Keanu Reeves going to a director's house. And he had two young kids who had never seen the Matrix movies. So he had asked Keanu, can you explain the Matrix movies to my kids? And he said something like, look, they're humans. They're caught in a simulation. None of them know it's a simulation. They're trying to, some of them are trying to find their way back to the real world. To which the young daughter replied, who cares if it's a simulation? Now that is a really profound response because you're getting so lost from reality, a simulation within a simulation, and then suddenly reality no longer has any importance to you. The richness, the depth of the experience is no longer interesting. You're fine with a simulation of a simulation. And it reminds me of the definition of schizophrenia. To be schizophrenic is to be cut off from reality. And modern humans, particularly if you go to like that generation of 20-year-olds, they simply don't care if they're in reality or a simulation of a simulation. And you're cut off from the joy and richness of genuine experiential reality. And we know this world. Even the 20-year-olds know this world. It's the flow state of music. It's walking through nature without thinking. It's that first bite of dessert before you start thinking about all the calories you just took in. And so it's the sunset without labeling it. If just a brief moment, you see the sun setting over the ocean, and that's experience. There's no experience or having an experience. There's just the experiential universe doing what it does. And then a thought comes online and, oh, I'm hungry. And then you get lost deeper into a deeper abstraction. I have to go to work. And we believe in things like work or business. Now, at the beginning, I said that this all may sound really strange, but I'd like to try to convince you that actually, that it's not nearly as strange as the other version. So the first version is that there's this physical universe and that we somehow have brains that are experiencing the external physical universe. But if you look at cases of individuals who stop thinking, you don't even have to think of them as individuals, just cases where we come back home from the thinking world, from being lost in a simulation of a simulation to back to reality itself, the pure experiencing universe, which happens. And it happened in Jill Bolte Taylor's case when her left brain shut down. Happened in Gary Weber's case where the thinking in terms of the auditory cortex, the voice in the head, stopped altogether. It happened to Douglas Harding as walking through the Himalayan mountains and all of a sudden stopped thinking altogether and got back to this experiential universe. And so, are we ready to wake up to this? Do you want to hit the snooze for a little bit more and get back to work, back to business, or is it time to wake up?